All right, we're going to start our reading lesson together. We're going to begin by listening and thinking about our success criteria. Angela, make sure your feet are quiet, please. All right, thinking about what are we going to learn today? I want all students focusing their attention, thinking about our success criteria.
Today's learning target is to explain that the United States has 3 levels of government: local, state, and national, also known as federal, and that each level has special duties and responsibilities.
Okay, so who was listening carefully and can share out? What are we going to talk about today in our reading lesson? Angela. We're going to talk something about states. The 3 what? Gloria. 3 levels of government. So we know that the government is the people and the system who make the rules in our community. Today we're going to learn about 3 levels of government. Here we have a picture, boys and girls, of those 3 levels. The biggest government is called the federal or the national, and they are the government in charge of our entire country. Then it goes down and it gets a little bit smaller. Then we have the state government. This is our state. This is Indiana. We have a government in charge of our entire state. So if you move to a different state like Ohio or Florida, they have their own government in charge of the state. Then the government gets even smaller. Then when we go inside our state, we have what we call local government, like our city of Lawrence, our city of Indianapolis. Today we're going to learn about those 3 levels of government. Please join me on Seesaw. We're going to start today by clicking Activities, Assign to Class folder, Red ELA. Our task today is called Levels and Branches of Government. Go ahead and find this task, please, and be ready for learning. All right, let's go ahead and open up our task for today, please. Our first slide talks about our success criteria, how we are learning about the 3 levels of government. Beginning on slide number 2, we have our text for today. We're going to spend a few minutes reading about our government. We're going to practice reading independently by ourselves. And then we're going to get with a partner and talk about what we understand about the text. Okay, so our first job, starting on slide 2, is our text. I want you to start reading on slide 2. If you get done, go on to slide 3, 4, and 5. I know that's a lot of pages, but there's also a lot of pictures that can help you understand the text. So let's do about 5 minutes of quiet, independent reading. That means you're focusing on the text. If you're on Zoom, you're going to do the same thing. 5 minutes, focusing on the text, starting on slide 2. I want you to read as many words as you can read. You may begin now. On slide 3, we begin learning about the 3 levels of government. The first level, the biggest level of government, the biggest government we have is our country, right? The big level. That's called the federal level. I want you to highlight the federal level, just like I'm doing. Take your highlight tool and highlight the federal level. We're going to read about the federal level. Right now, I'm going to be the reader, and I want you thinking about what you understand about the government that runs our big country. I'm going to start right here at the federal level. The federal government is divided into 3 branches. They are the legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch has specific powers and responsibilities. The legislative branch makes laws for the whole country. At the federal level, the legislative branch is made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Together, these 2 groups are known as Congress. People in each state vote for people from their state to represent them in Congress. So let's look at this big picture to the right. Right over here. Our country has a government that rules our whole country. In that government, there are 3 parts, and we have already talked about these parts a little bit. We talked about the Supreme Court, remember the lawyers and judges? That's part of the federal level. So there are 3 main parts. I want you to take your writing tool. We're going to mark up our text. I'm going to choose green. I'm feeling in a green mood today. There are 3 parts. Number 1, there's a legislative branch. Number 2, executive branch. And number 3, there are 3 parts. Number 3 is judicial branch. In our national or federal government, the biggest government we have, it's called the federal level. There are the 3 branches. There's 3 parts to it. And what you're going to see is when our government gets smaller, when it goes to our state or goes to our community, those same 3 parts are going to be in it. People who make laws, the person in charge, and the people who deal with the courts. Okay? So this is at our federal level. Next, we're going to continue and think about what happens when it gets smaller and it goes to the state level. Next, we're going to think about the state level. Let's go ahead and look at slide number 4, please. I'm sorry, let's go to number 5, please. Slide number 5. We are going to now read about the state level. I want you to get your highlight tool. We're going to highlight the state level. We have a government that is in charge of our state. Our state is called Indiana. We have a government in charge. Let's read about the state government. I'm going to be the reader. I want you tracking the text and thinking about what you understand. Ready? State governments are modeled after the federal government. So it looks just like the federal government. The legislative branch is made up of representatives from around the state. They make laws for the state. The head of the executive branch is the governor. The judicial branch is made up of courts in the state. Okay, so now we're thinking about the state level. Now we have a government that's a little bit smaller. The federal government is still bigger than this government. but it still has those same three parts. It has people who write laws. It has somebody who's in charge called the governor. And it has judges who take people to court, just like at the federal level. So I want you kind of thinking about a picture that we have a big country with a big government. Then our state gets a little bit smaller. We have a government that's in charge of our state. It still has those same three parts. People who write laws, judges, and somebody in charge. All right, next, let's talk about the local level. Get your highlight tool. We're going to highlight the local level. We're going to read about the local level and we're going to think, if the federal government has three parts and the state government has three parts, I'm wondering if the local government is going to have those same three parts. I'm wondering if we see a pattern here with the type of governments we have. All right, let's look at our text. Are you ready? Look at the local government. Here we go. Governments divided all states into areas. In most states, these areas are called counties. Alaska calls them boroughs. Louisiana calls them parishes. States also have towns and cities. We know about that. States give certain powers to the local governments that run counties, towns, and cities. Local governments can make rules for their area. Okay, so they can make their own rules. Awesome. They can make rules about parking and garbage pickup. They can even make rules about how many pets can live in one home. Local rules are called ordinances. Okay, so our local government is the smallest type of government. And it's our small community. So if you live in Lawrence, we have a local government. If you live in Indianapolis, we have a local government. They also have three parts. So look at this pattern. Our country is really big, so there's a big government. Our state is still pretty big, but it's not as big as the country, kind of the medium. And then there's local governments, okay? And there are three parts in each one, and they all do the same jobs. They make laws. There's the executive branch, that's the person in charge. And then there's the judges, the courts, the people who decide this is illegal or no, you can't do that. Okay, so those same three parts you see repeated. So if we live here, if this is our community, these people are in charge of me. I have to follow the laws and the rules at the local government. But I also have to follow the state government. I also have to follow the federal government. There's three governments that are in charge of us. Okay? So sometimes we see problems with the law. Do you remember we learned about Thurgood Marshall?
Yeah.
We learned about Thurgood Marshall, and we learned that there were some laws that people made where they told people that people with brown skin and people with white skin could not go to school together. That used to be a law. Is that law about equality?
No.
No, it's not. In fact, it's treating people very differently just based on their skin. So sometimes there might be a law and the people say, this law is not okay. People at the local level can take this law to the state government and say, hey, we have a law that we disagree with. We don't think it's equitable. We don't think it's equal. And then the state can decide, do we think this is the right thing or not? Sometimes the state says, we don't know. And the people say, we're going to take this law to the federal government. We're going to tell them, hey, we have a law in our community that we disagree with. We don't think it's fair. We don't think it's right. We don't think it's equal treatment. The federal government is like the big boss. They are the people who decide if laws can stay or not. Okay? So it's kind of a cool thing. It's a cool thing that we have 3 levels of government. We have 3 groups of people who make laws and rules for us to keep us safe and to help us work together. And it's also a great thing because if somebody in this government is not doing a good job, if somebody in this government is not doing the right thing, if they're making laws that are wrong, we can say, we're going to take it to your boss. And we could go all the way up to the president, to the Supreme Court. This is a structure that keeps people safe. So when you have an issue in your community, that's a right that people have. We can go to the state government, we can go to the federal government and say, we don't like this. And other countries are not that way. Some people, the government says, do this, that's all you do. That's it. They only have one boss, but we really have 3 bosses that are in charge of our laws, our rules, and keeping our community safe. Nick, go ahead. Sometimes that happens. People at the top say, we don't know, this is tricky. But they have to make a decision. They have to decide something, and then they say, okay, we will follow that. They say, okay, we will follow that. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes there are situations that are just so difficult that nobody really knows the right answer. I'm glad you brought that up, Nick. But the judges up here, like Thurgood Marshall, they're the ones with the most power. They get to make decisions about laws. He was at the federal level, yes. So he was one of the judges in charge of the whole country, which is a very powerful position to be in. All right, great job thinking about our text today, boys and girls. Let's go ahead and continue on with our learning today. Go ahead and click on slide 6. On slide 6, we have a quick little video that's helping us think about each level of government and the 3 parts in the government. So look at this picture. Here we have the federal level. Notice how it's the biggest. That's the country. Then we have our state, Indiana. It's a little bit smaller, but it's still a big government. And then our local level. Let's go ahead and listen to this video thinking about the 3 levels of government.
In your reading today, you learned that the United States government has 3 levels: the federal level, the state level, and the local level. Each one of these levels has 3 branches to it: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Watch the video, 3 Branches of Government, to learn what each of these branches does.
All right, we're going to watch our video.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire,
the legislative branch makes the laws. The United States Congress runs the legislative branch. Congress members introduce bills, which are ideas for new laws. A bill cannot become a law until it is approved by the executive branch. The President of the United States is the leader of the executive branch. The President can approve or veto a bill. When a bill is vetoed, it is rejected. When the President signs a bill, it becomes a law. The executive branch also enforces laws to make sure that people follow them. The judicial branch is made up of courts and judges. The U.S. Supreme Court is the highest court in the judicial branch. Members of the judicial branch review laws to make sure they are fair. It's trivia time. Let's see what you know about the 3 branches of government. Question 1. Which branch of the United States government is responsible for making laws? A. The judicial branch. B. The legislative branch. C. The executive branch. If you need to think about it, pause the video. Go back and peek at the lesson again if you need more help. The answer is B. The legislative branch makes the laws. Great job. Question 2. Who is the leader of the executive branch? A. The President. B. The Supreme Court. C. Congress. Correct. The answer is A. The President of the United States is the leader of the executive branch. The executive branch enforces laws to make sure that people follow them. Let's try one more. Question 3. Who reviews laws in the judicial branch? A. Congress members. B. American citizens. C. Court judges. Yes. The answer is C. The judicial branch reviews laws to make sure they are fair. Great job. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Awesome. Thank you for your focus, boys and girls. All right, so let's get back into our text for today, our task for today. We know that there are 3 levels of government, and that's to help keep people safe. And in each level, there are 3 parts. We have talked about those 3 parts in our video. Let's go to slide number 7, please. Slide number 7 says the federal government is in charge of things that pertain to the whole country. So think about our big government. They are in charge of things that pertain to the whole country. State governments like Indiana and Georgia's have responsibilities specific to their state. So at the state level, they're in charge of things just for their own state. In our country, there are lots of different states, and there are different governments for each state. We're going to watch some videos now that will help us understand this at the state level. Video should not be playing. You're looking and listening with the teacher.
In case you hadn't noticed, the United States of America is a big country, and Georgia is a big state inside this big country. Sometimes running big things like the United States and the big things inside of the big things like Georgia can be a little confusing. But we're here to help, so sit back, kick off your shoes, and when we are all done here, we hope it won't seem confusing at all. Government surrounds us at all levels. It can be local, like your neighborhood planning unit, or even bigger, like your city council or school board. Bigger still, like state government, and then humongous, like the entire country. But While all of these levels have different overlapping boundaries, they all work together to serve you. Today, we're going to focus on the top two levels, federal and state. Here's how it works. I'm sure you've heard of the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, that together are designed to provide checks and balances on each other, basically to make sure that no one branch becomes too powerful. This three-branch concept is implemented in one way or another at pretty much every level of government. The first level, the federal level, makes laws and rules for the whole country. This includes things like coining money, interstate highways, foreign policy, laws regulating and overseeing large national initiatives in things like education, federal policy for public benefits, crime, and health. One of the main things the federal government does is it makes lots and lots of decisions about how to dole out federal tax dollars to other levels of government and programs. Much of the decision-making at the federal level takes place in Washington, D.C., and much of it takes place on or near Capitol Hill. The legislative branch is comprised of two chambers, the United States Senate, which is overseen by the Vice President, and the United States House of Representatives, which is overseen by the Speaker of the House. Together, they are referred to as Congress. In Washington, D.C., Georgia is represented by 2 United States senators, like every other state in the country, and 14 congressional representatives. The senators each represent the entire state. The congressmen or women each represent a district containing about 700,000 people. That means that each citizen has 2 United States senators and 1 congressman representing them in Washington, D.C. Congress is considered a full-time legislature because they work throughout the year. At the federal level, any bills or budgets passed by both the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives must be signed by the President of the United States in order to become law. The second level of government is the state level. States make laws and rulings for the people in their state. These policies are similar to the federal ones, but are more narrow and focused on the particular needs of the people in the state, and the process can differ from state to state. This includes things like policies for hospitals, state transportation, education, implementation of public benefits, and crime. The state gets to make decisions about how to spend state tax dollars. One thing to know here is that when federal and state laws conflict, federal law always overrides the state law, just like state law overrides local law. At the state level, here in Georgia, much of the decision-making takes place at or near the state capitol in Atlanta, affectionately referred to as the Gold Dome. The governor is the head of the executive branch, and our legislative branch is comprised of 2 chambers, the State Senate, which is overseen by the Lieutenant Governor, and the House of Representatives, which is overseen by the Georgia Speaker of the House. Together, these bodies are referred to as the General Assembly. The State Senate has 56 members representing districts with populations of about 173,000 each. The House has 180 members, and each of them represents districts with a little under 54,000 residents each. Our state lawmakers are in legislative session about 3 to 4 months at the beginning of each year, and so are considered a part-time legislature. At this level, for a bill to become a law, it must be passed by both the Senate and the House and then signed by the governor, or remain unsigned for 40 days, in which case it becomes law automatically. The only state bill that is required to be passed each year is a balanced state budget. The rest are gravy. So that about covers it. Now you can put your shoes back on, maybe feel a little more knowledgeable, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.
All right, so that video was all about the state of Georgia. And Georgia is a different state than Indiana. So we don't live in Georgia, we live in Indiana. So we know that our country has the federal government, then our state called Indiana has a state government, and then inside our state, we have a local government that helps with our city. All right, let's go ahead and go to slide number 8, please. and talk about our independent task today. Everybody's clicking on slide number 8, focusing on the directions so that when it's your work time, you can start on slide number 8.
This starts your independent work for today. On the next slide, you'll be given several boxes with information in it, descriptions, responsibilities, and your job, and you'll see a chart, and your job is to take and scoot or slide those descriptions or responsibilities into or under the level of government that it describes. So you'll notice that there will be the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And then at the top, it'll say all governments. So you're going to click and you're going to read each one of those boxes, and you're going to click and drag each one of those into the level of government that most fits that particular piece of information. Good luck.
All right, so starting on slide 8, when it's your work time, you can come back to slide 8 and listen to the directions again, because Mrs. Saxton is describing what you're going to do. Then going to slide 9, you will see the chart that she's talking about. Up at the top, it says all levels of government. So you're going to read these and think, do these descriptions, do any of them apply to all of the levels? Then you're going to sort them into federal, state, and local. We can go back and use our text. We barely looked at the text together. We kind of read it independently and had some conversation, but you can go back and check. So you're going to read these boxes and decide, does this one fit for all governments at the federal level, at the state level, or the local level? Okay, that's going to be our job today. Then going to slide number 10, this is if you get done. If you get done on slide 10, there are some jobs for you to do, like watching Brain Pop, taking the quiz, or playing this game. You can do those if you get done with slide number 9. Okay, so we're going to end our Zoom lesson. Friends who are on Zoom, don't forget that our math starts at 10:30. We're now doing math Zoom at 10:30. So we're going to end our reading lesson here. It's now our break time. And when we come back, everyone's going to start on slide 8 and do their independent work. Thank you, friends on Zoom. I will see you at math time at 10:30.